She's Katy Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. The advice column reboot you never knew you needed. Sparks fly. And so does the hilarity. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of Wrong Way Forward. I'm Katy Montgomery, and I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph, and we're going to tackle some really bad advice.
Yeah. I think we've hit some big thought leaders so far in our journey on Wrong Way Forward, and today we're taking on one of the biggest.
His name is Tony Robbins, and we're going to play you a clip in just a little bit. But before we get started, my memory of Tony Robbins was being a little girl and seeing kind of that late night infomercials. And you could purchase like a 50 tape set of like meditation and advice tapes from Tony Robbins. And I just always found him really creepy. And so because of that, I've never been an active follower of his advice. But actually diving into this piece of advice we're going to share with y'all, I have no regrets for not having followed him up to this point.
And I think I have a different way of looking at it, surprisingly, but sort of the same way. I feel like even though he tries to be, a thought leader, I feel like he makes such an effort to be high energy, it turns me off. His energy to me is not authentic, it's not real. And so if that's the case, I don't really care what he has to say.
So let's just admit that as we move with the wrong way forward, we are a little biased, both of us.
All right, so let's dive into Tony Robbins' advice, and we'll take it up on the other side.
There have been people that have been through the most horrific experiences in life, and they found a way to still be happy because they've made the decision that life is too short to suffer. And the way I get out of suffering, I give myself a 90-second rule. If I feel myself starting to feel that stress, feeling that pissed offness or upsetness or concern or worry about my kid, whatever, I realize that's not going to make it better. Life's too short to suffer. And then I just kind of breathe slowly, slow everything down, and I just watch the thought go by and go, look at that crazy thought.
I'm sorry, that's total horseshit. Excuse my language.
I agree with that. 90 seconds, I think that is basically suppressing feelings. I think it is a very oversimplified, quick fix that actually could be fairly dangerous.
I totally agree. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think as someone who's been through, and maybe you want to share, been through some traumatic things in your life, that rule would not work in your situation.
I agree. Yeah. I think at a later episode, we could kind of delve into kind of major trauma, but I really do believe in the 5 stages of grief. And having had 2 fairly traumatic situations in my life, I think there is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think if you don't go through those healthy stages, then you will continue to suffer. And then you'll continually be doing the 90-second rule all day long, all week long, and continually.
Yeah, and just so our viewers know, you lost both your parents. Again, we can talk about that at a later time, but it was obviously very difficult.
Yeah, and under tragic circumstances, I would just.
And we'll do that. We'll talk about that at another time. So 90-second rule doesn't work for specifically in a case of grief, is what you're talking about. I also think it doesn't necessarily work in other cases that are less traumatic. It's just it's one of these things that you're trying to make a generalization about a large set of circumstances that just doesn't apply in every situation.
And I can tell you from having done a lot of coaching sessions with leaders, even just kind of everyday leadership decisions, that are affecting organizations, people need to process the emotions behind that. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just, why did that happen? Why am I reacting this way? Why do I have these triggers? How do I process these? How do I contain that anxiety for those people that I lead and manage? Mm-hmm. And I think if you were just to do a 90-second rule, you're not really having that self-reflection and emotional intelligence that's really important to be a strong leader that's focused on growth.
Mm-hmm. And just to share some personal stories, for me as a realtor, firstly, anybody who knows me, me. Hopefully people are getting to know me. I'm an ultra competitive person.
Yes.
And so I pour my heart and soul into something. And so when I lose, it's devastating. I don't care what the loss is, but like for a recent example, I lost a significant listing that I wanted and I didn't get it. And it laid me on the couch for a week. And that doesn't mean that I'm, dribbling on myself, but it was hard to think about other things.
Right. And I think the right way forward, which is the opposite of kind of what Tony Robbins is suggesting, is that if you were to say 90 seconds, I'm going to get to happiness, the better thing to do is to reflect. Why do I feel this way? Why am I having a reaction to this? Why is this so intense? What makes me feel better? How have I gotten over this in the past? That takes a little bit longer than 90 seconds, but I think it's getting to the root cause rather than having this superficial. And I think that's what bothers me about him. It's just very superficial. And I think
it's an easy sell. It's easy for him to sell.
It's an easy sell. And I think it's also, I'm finding that our culture likes the quick fixes.
It's lazy.
It's lazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I got into real estate, because in real estate, you have defeats on a regular basis. I think in life you do. You're not always going to win.
Correct.
And my first mentor said, mourn it and move on. Which I think that's a better rule, because mourn it and move on. Mourning it may mean taking a week. It may mean taking 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. It may mean taking a year.
Right. And I think the thing too about it is that, the way that he kind of puts it out there is he starts with this really big premise. People have been through horrific trauma, but they're still happy. There's a lot of people who get through terrific trauma and are incredibly happy. And that's because they allow themselves to experience anger and depression and acceptance, and to lean on people in their communities, not do this in 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I thought his actual argument is going from people have had horrible, horrific experiences and then later experience happiness. And then between, point A and point B, his 90-second rule works. It was just an overstatement and an oversimplification.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think that the important thing to take away from whether it's mourn and move on or the 90 seconds or the 5 stages of grief is you have to learn to experience the feelings. Ask the questions you were talking about.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, I think his advice is the wrong way forward in this case.
Could not agree more, Justin. Look at us. We're on the same page.
For once.
I know. It's about time, right?
All right. So today we are talking about Tony Robbins, Wrong Way Forward. We disagree that it's as easy as just simply, watching it. I think he said you watch it go by over your head. It's just not the way to live.
No, correct. And it's actually it's not watching it go ahead. It's putting your head in the sand.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. All right. So when we come back, we're going to talk about viewer emails from our last show. Last show, we were talking about pet peeves, and I think we had a lot of them.
I mean, and then when I looked back at my notes, I didn't list about 5 or 10 of them. So.
Oh, you're going to list a few more today?
I mean, I may or may not, but we might have a pet peeves episode number 2, which again, if I can make a plug, we'd love to hear about your pet peeves and any wrong way forward advice that you've been hearing. You can email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
And we'll be back on the other side with more information and your emails on what our pet peeves were last week. We'll be right back after this.
Right back.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
That's right, Katie. Nobody's off limits, not the gurus, not the influencers, and definitely not Oprah.
Sorry, Oprah.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
Hi, we're back. And we're going to review some reader emails about our last session. But we did talk about pet peeves. And Justin and I, since that taping, have just a few more to cover.
Yeah. We went out. We've obviously, since we're in town together, we've been out to dinner. I feel like most of my pet peeves occur at restaurants. Is that weird? We talked about episode 1.
Yes.
The wine upsell.
Yes, and I think your 2 dinner companions had a little phase of discomfort last night too.
No, Justin was totally appropriate.
I'm talking about the no way. You started to get a little snippy and it was more that we were scared that you were gonna.
But I had learned from our first episode, and not know the waiter would have known none the better.
Yes, and I want to note that he was a new waiter. He was very kind. He was very nice. But what was your pet peeve last night?
My pet peeve was we had been to this restaurant before because, again, if you know me, I'm a creature of habit, so we eat at the same places. And the last time we were at this restaurant, it was very busy last time, and we were sitting at the bar, and food came before drinks ever did. And
I agree. That's annoying.
yeah, it's annoying. And what we've learned, and we have a couple restaurants like this, is you order one thing and you don't order the next thing until that gets there because. Also, you don't want a fast dinner. You want kind of dinner to take its time. I mean, you were tired, you were ready to go home. So
I was exhausted. It's very exhausting podcasting with you, Justin.
So that was a new add to the pet peeve. But last time we were talking about pet peeves, you want to cover a couple of yours? What were your big ones?
I mean, my big ones last time were things about thank you notes and a few others. I have a new one because I'm heading to the airport early tomorrow morning. And what is up with people thinking heading to the airport is an invitation to dress like a slob? I mean, people wear pajama pants. People look like they literally just rolled out of bed. It has just become this kind of mass transit of just slobs.
Does it make any difference if you're taking a red eye or a 5 a.m. flight?
I mean, I don't expect people to have their hair blown out and full makeup, but I think, and I'm even okay with leisure wear, but why don't we just, take a little pride in the appearance? It's like now you drop someone in an airport and then it's literally, it's the analogy that I can only kind of come to mind is when we were in college and there'd be a fire alarm at like 4 a.m. in the morning and everybody would have to exit to the quad. That's what people look like. Is that appropriate? I just, to me, it's a big pet peeve.
Okay. And I guess to me, it bothers me less unless they're sitting next to me. Then I'm like, okay, you shouldn't sit next to me wearing that. But I mean, as long as you keep your socks and your shoes on, I'm really okay with it. That's
a big assumption now.
That's a low bar for me.
Yes.
I don't want to see your feet.
I mean, I agree with that, but there's no guarantee anymore.
Yeah,
Justin.
That's true. I wonder what changed. That's what's interesting because in our parents' days, you dressed up to get on the plane. It was an experience. Maybe it's just because it's such it is mass transit.
It has, and it's become much more accessible to everyone, which I think is great because I want people to be able to see the world and travel and spend time with loved ones and, and have careers, that they can grow in. But that doesn't give permission to wear pajama pants at the airport.
So, so that's on your new pet peeve list. That's not going to be in our viewer emails today because we didn't discuss it.
Right.
Last time, my big ones were the 4 Ds I talked about at my house. And
yes.
I was growing up, 4 Ds and a B. You didn't talk about death, disease, destruction, or dirt, or the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah. So that's still on my list. I've got some great viewer emails on that. These are not necessarily critical of you because you didn't disagree with me on that necessarily, but I laughed out loud when Justin drew the line at bathroom
chatter over meals. Same here. Save the GI symposia for the doctor's office. My linguine doesn't need a trigger warning.
Boundaries aren't prudish; they're considerate. I think it's good.
I mean, it's good, but I mean, I have something. Justin's list of forbidden dinner topics. Dirt, death, disease, and destruction seems intense, but the real shocker is his fear of the 4 Ds and a B, bathroom humor. A man who can't handle the word poo, and I'd like to state for the record it's poot, might not be ready for a podcast about things that drive us nuts.
I can talk about it, but you're going to see my level of uncomfortableness rise as dramatically as the heat in this room. It makes me uncomfortable. It's just who I am.
Well, there you go.
You can't change that. Here's a good one. Justin is 2 for 2. Litter is a community killer. I don't remember discussing litter, but did I?
Oh, me. I can't stand it.
Okay. Litter is a community killer, and bad ice ruins a good drink. I started bringing a small grabber on evening walks, and it's contagious. Neighbors joined in. Also, clear ice, potty ice cubes. Standards matter, even the little things. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, of course you agree. That person is, again, did your husband write in?
Justin nailed it. Handwritten thank you notes are a tiny masterclass in gratitude and professionalism. That was Katy, by the way. But I agree with that. I think that is. I teach a college seminar and now make students write 3 notes a semester. I think that's interesting. What do you think about that? That a college professor makes their students write thank you notes.
I mean, I think if it's relevant to what's being taught and if it's pertinent and it makes sense on the learning objectives, 100%.
Yeah. This you can tell that Professor Dan R. in Denver. I'd like to have him on the show. he's actually has some really insightful things. He said, after the students write this, the change in tone and their thoughtfulness is wild. And this is a text is a receipt, a note is a relationship. Brilliant.
That is brilliant. I thought this one was interesting. Justin's quick fire pet peeve is slow drivers. His co-host Katy immediately counters that she's bothered by impatient and kind of crazy drivers, which Justin is one. It's a miracle they made it to the studio together without a road rage incident.
Well, in everyone's defense, Katy doesn't drive. You don't drive. You're like Oprah. And you haven't even got there yet. But
I mean, if I can walk somewhere, I'd rather walk. If public transportation is a faster way to get from point A to point B, I can drive, and I do drive.
Yeah.
I just like to keep that at an absolute minimum.
Let's see what else we have. Let's see. Oh, that's not one that's really relevant. Anything else you have on your end?
I mean, I have to tell you, I think a lot of people are agreeing with our pet peeves. And so maybe, that is a space where, right way forward.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do this sort of topic on a regular basis. I think pet peeves are really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Viewer emails are also fun to see what else is bothering everybody out there. But yeah, we'll hit this topic on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think now we'll take a break.
Yep.
And when we come back, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We've got a new topic.
What are we talking about this week? You want to save it?
Let's save it.
All right, we'll be back right after this. We'll be right back.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
And we're back. And in this part of our episode, we just basically talk about it. And so what do you want to talk about today?
So what I want to talk about today is we're going to set it up with a clip, and then we're going to come back on the other side. This clip, I think, when I played, everybody knows what it is. Everybody has an opinion on it. We've had some new news to update it, and then we'll come back and talk about our take on it here in a second.
Yeah. Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
So, of course, we're talking about the Coldplay kiss cam.
Yes.
By now you'd be living on a different planet if you haven't heard about this. Why don't you, as you said, there's some new news on it. Why don't you bring our listeners up to date on what that is, and then we'll talk about our take.
I think what I read is that the woman who was, caught in the kiss cam, her husband is now filed for divorce.
Right.
And we do know that since that incident, I think he has been released from his company, and there's been quite a bit of fallout. I think what I find most sad about it is the family pictures that include the kids.
Sure.
And so now they're exposed, and it's become, it's viral. And so now they're implicated in it.
Sure. And I think what we want to talk about today is, again, the Coldplay kiss cam has been talked about to death. But I think the broader take is office romance.
Yes.
Acceptable, a right way forward, a wrong way forward.
Correct. So I'm going to use a little foul language here. I think the general rule should be don't shit where you eat. And I think that there are so many things at play. First of all, you've got to check and see what are the rules in your company. Some people have very specific, non-fraternization rules, or if you choose to, there are certain rules where that person cannot be managing your performance, managing your key performance indicators or your objectives. And I think the first thing is to check the regulations and what applies in your office.
That's the lawyer in you.
That is the lawyer in me. And then I think it's also kind of, coaching kind of business leaders. I think it's also really thinking about your team. If you are a leader, of which in the KISS camp, both of these people were C-suite executives. Mm-hmm. They were not only managing strategy of the company, they were managing team members. And I think that's a real lack of, of leadership, is not considering how this can impact your team members. Mm-hmm. Any type of change is difficult, and change in organizations is hard. This has put a lot of change on those employees because of some selfish and not purely thought through decisions. But I think another thing that I'm concerned about is the way that it falls out for women, because office gossip is real.
Well, why is that just for women though?
I think that women tend to take the brunt of it if there is a relationship like this. We tend to see a lot of times men are in more advanced positions. Women, we've always heard she's sleeping up the corporate ladder. There can be a lot of nasty associations. And I don't know if those equally apply to men.
So do you think this has set women in the workplace, this single incident has set women in the workplace back?
I don't know if this single incident, but I think it was particularly bad that she worked in HR. And so she was a woman, she knew the rules, and she did that anyway. And I would need to go back and review, but my guess is who kind of comes out worse. I would guess that there's a possibility that she might be inching just a little bit ahead.
And I would say I have a friend, and I'm going to keep everyone anonymous here, who works in the industry they do and knows the man in this, and has been at a conference with him several years ago.
Yes.
And these are allegations. She said when she heard this happen, she looked up and saw who it was and said it didn't surprise her at all because of his behavior at a conference she was at with this same man, allegedly several years ago. So, it sounds like this is a tiger with the same stripes, as they say.
There you go. And I think what is really interesting is, lots of people have said, well, I found love in the office and I found my coworker. But I think people need to get beyond what your personal experience was and really think about, is this a slippery slope? And how do we protect our employees? How do we make sure that it is a comfortable and safe environment? And what's at play here? And so I think, if people process that, I think it's also important for organizations to have really open discussions about this. I think a lot of times you join an organization and you watch the sexual harassment video and you click a box and they can show that you've been trained. And I think there should really be a discussion about what are the values in this organization? How do we live and we hold ourselves? And how does that kind of come across?
Yeah.
And you can fall in love in the office. That happens. But how do you handle that to make sure that everyone is accommodated for and that we can avoid the office gossip and that we can avoid a lack of integrity that might be coming across?
And I feel like at some point, both the man and the woman made a choice because at some point they realized, they knew they were doing something that was inappropriate.
Clearly they both were grown people and they fell to the floor.
At some point, they made a choice to choose an affair and sex over their work paths.
And what I think would be interesting to ask both of them is how many things happen in the moment and are impulsive. And the fact that it's forbidden might make it a little bit more an adrenaline rush and exciting. And then at that point, you're too far gone that it's like, and once people know they've done something bad, it's much more difficult for someone to come back and admit they've done something bad rather than to get permission, right?
And let's not forget that this same type of affair is what caused Glenn Close to boil a bunny in her affairs. Remember when she broke into his house and boiled a bunny?
In Fatal Attraction, which I'm so embarrassed to say this. I think people will just think I'm the biggest weirdo. But my grandfather Gumps was visiting, and my parents had that on, and Fatal Attraction was on, and I was in the same room with my parents and my grandfather, and it might have been the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. And I can't believe that just flashed into my memory because I'm really uncomfortable.
It was traumatic. Well, morning to move on.
Morning.
Watch the 90 seconds go. You'll get over it in 90 seconds for Tony Robbins. All right, let's take a few of your emails on this topic. Justin and Katy, hi. I think office romances get an unfair reputation. Sure, they can be messy, but some of the best relationships start when people share goals, values, and countless hours working together. I think that's a fair statement. Do you?
I think it's a fair statement, but, then what steps do you take?
Yep. Another one, please. Office romances are a train wreck in slow motion. Love that. You can't flirt by the copier on Monday and expect the team meeting on Tuesday to stay professional. I think if you had to choose viewer email A or viewer email B, which one would you be?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's tough. I think they're both kind of valid statements. You know, and I think this is for a later show. And I don't know if you're going to remember this. When we were student body president and vice president, we had to meet with all of the university leadership over the summer. And we got back and we said, would you rather have a meeting with a man or a woman? Do you remember this?
No.
And we debated kind of what was better. And I do think that part of sales and pitching and managing and all that kind of stuff probably has a little bit of a flirt to it and a little bit, I mean, this is probably why I'm single at 51. As part of my flirting is poking fun at you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it would be really sad if all of that left the workplace. I just think everybody needs to understand the boundary.
But in the Me Too era, it has, or it should, because most people don't know the line. Not most people, but a lot of people don't know the line between flirting and it gets too much.
Right. Or just regular kind of banter and, and being kind of casual and fun. Exactly.
Here's my favorite viewer email so far. Most office romances aren't soulmates. It's just Stockholm syndrome with cubicles. You see the same faces 40 hours a week and suddenly Bill from IT looks like Prince Charming. Spoiler, he's not.
I mean, I'm just imagining Bill from IT and I'm like, it'd have to be Slim Pickens.
Bill from IT does not sound fabulous.
He does not.
And poor Bill, you may very well be.
I mean, you may be the best man alive.
Bill, you may be hot. We want to hear from you. If you're Bill from IT, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
We need you to push back. Well, that's all the time we have this week on our episode 6 of Wrong Way Forward. Please send us your personal stories, your bad advice, your good advice, whatever. We'll take it all on. That's at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And it's great to hear from y'all. And again, thank you for joining us. If you enjoy the content, we would love for you to follow. And you can always leave a review. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.